side of the workers. So the power is not with the workers, the power is with the boss. Okay? Now, organizing at the very core level tries to discuss what is this democratic process in which unions should be built, which should be about the workers themselves getting organized. Okay? So, organizing is the idea, right? That you have the workers. Okay? And again, this was an American conversation, right? Just to contextualize it, in which if there was problems, right, the idea was to identify collective problems and not just react to every individual problem, but to identify which is the core problem that affects the majority of the workers in a deep way, okay? And use that issue to help advising the workers to organize collectively, right, to actually confront their bosses directly themselves with support, all right? In the Justice for Gender's perspective in particular, what we had was that the new economy sector, right, had created, these are the owners of the buildings, okay, in cleaning, security, also food service workers. There is an owner, we had property managers, which are also corporations in America. The property managers hire the cleaning companies, and the cleaning companies hire the workers, okay? So in the United States, traditionally, the relationship between the union and the contract was between these two parties. See that? The problem is that the money is here. These guys take a cut, these guys take a cut, and these workers get shit. So the conversation was, one, to understand that we were creating this by not organizing properly, by not identifying organic leaders in the workplace, by helping them think through how to organize the rest. We were not doing deep base work, okay? And not only that, but we had not adapted to a changing economy. We were still thinking that the power was here, okay? When in effect, because of subcontracting processes, right, the conversation was that then we needed to create a model in which to be able to organize workers properly, okay, with social movements, and I'll discuss this in a minute, maybe in the next part of the question, because I have probably 3 minutes left. And the idea in this model is to make such a movement here to be able to keep the real owners of this process, the ones that have the money, the ones that have the decision, okay? Now, in the neoliberal market discussion, all right, you have companies competing with each other. That's the beauty, they say, of the market, right? It will be efficient. Everybody will have to improve their practice. The problem with that is that in this situation, the one with the lowest standard, with the lowest cost, is the one that gets the contract, okay? So this competition is pushing down on the standards. And the union and the workers and the social movements are the only ones that can create a strong floor, okay? By a contract and by enforceability of that contract, okay? In the United States, for example, the unions were not thinking, were not adapting to the times, were not adapting to this kind of new employer relationships, right? And furthermore, they had a serious political problem in the model of representing power, rather than actually having power represent itself, the workers being in the driver's seat of what needs to happen, okay? So there was a conversation, and we said, okay, so one thing is us fucking ourselves up by not adapting, by representing and not creating power, by not working with alliances that can help us, right? And then there is the other side, the frontal, neoliberal, American, barbaric side, which is, we don't want unions in this country, and we will create the laws and create such an environment in which it's impossible to actually unionize easily. In America, if you tomorrow decide you want to be in the union, you cannot. It's not your right. Until you and your whole company organize 50% of the workers plus one. Then you get the right to a union. Okay? So this model is born out of the most nasty environment on earth. Or well, not the nastiest, because at least they don't kill us, because there's plenty of worse places to be a unionist, yeah. But in a very, very harsh environment, okay? And in which Republicans and Democrats together, right, passed laws that were not friendly to working people, and actually allowed and enabled capital and companies and employers to make it very difficult for us to organize. So the model comes from sheer survival. It's not like the Americans are brilliant people. It's that they had to develop something way more sophisticated in order to win in that particular environment. Okay? So the lessons in the United States, I think, for us that are left, for us that we need to think through, okay, what is leftist about this, right? Is a conversation that when and if unions are able to open a space for a struggle, that's where the change happens, right? And we cannot think of the union here only as a monolithic top-bottom discussion, but the union is a very complex situation, and that if we're able to do something like this in packets or across the board in a union, we're able to regenerate the power we lost. One, because we allowed it to be lost, and two, because also capitalism is smart, is efficient, is adaptable, right? And they don't have a problem with changing. They will change as long as they can make a profit. We, as a labor movement, are very ossified. And changing seems so impossible, yeah? So organizing is about saying, it took us 20 years to develop this model. It happened through fucking up and learning. And every time doing it better. And every time thinking, what did we do well? We have to repeat it. What did we not do well? Let's think about how to do it better, okay? So organizing is also quite, in my view, a very open source process. It's not just a model that I come and I give it to you and you go apply it. No. It's a model that has to be developed in the practice, all right? And it's not about a transcendental idea, right? That's how it needs to look. And if it doesn't look like that, you're selling the union, you're selling the workers out, you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you're not doing that, which might be true. But the process is, how do we go from this idea to actually trying to change it? Okay? And organizing, I think what it permits is one, to think very strongly about where you're fighting, how to fight better, okay? And then practice it. Practice it, making errors, not making errors, having the necessary resources or not, okay? And so I wanna discuss that, because in the United States what happened then was that this model, through janitors, as our sister here said, Fanny, right, with undocumented cleaners mainly from Central America and Mexico, which I come from, by the way, and mainly minority workers, working class people, poor working class people, that applied a very sophisticated model in the sense of understanding the industry, and applied a very deep model of actually being able to organize a very strong worker base. Okay, that's why we go to people's homes. That's why we actually work with worker committees and etc. Creating also alliances with a bigger social movement. The last thing I want to say about this before I pass it over is that in working with the political and social movement alliances, okay, from the churches all the way to the black bloc, and everybody in the middle, okay, it also transformed the union. In what sense? In the sense that when we were fighting, we were not just fighting for these workers, we were fighting for migrant communities that are facing difficult situations in the poor neighborhoods. We were fighting for bigger things than the union itself. Okay? And that also meant that our practice had to change, in the sense that we couldn't talk about 3% with the leader of the union, which, you know, fair enough, he's done a very good work, but that the union was represented by a white guy, 50 years old, talking about a percentage, because nobody cared. We have to change this union to be represented by Maria